Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. It is CRR week in Illinois and all across the country. We want to thank Governor Pritzker for proclaiming this week a CRR week. We've got a proclamation on our website and on our social media pages, but we wanted to go talk to some of the poster children of Illinois when it comes to CRR, and I couldn't think of a better place to stop in and visit with at the Peoria Fire Department. And Nate Rice here, Division Chief. You're kind of like the CRR guru, right, of Peoria.
Yes, and this was something that, when I stepped into this role 3.5 years ago, I didn't really have a true grasp of CRR, I would say. We've been very fortunate here in Peoria to kind of have some things happen and some things go on that has really expanded our view of CRR and what it truly is and what it truly means. And so, I did definitely, lead that charge here, mainly because of the role that I play in fire prevention world, but it also expanded my knowledge of really what CRR is and how it's so much more really than fire prevention.
And then that's the point that we want to make too, is this isn't just fire prevention. This isn't education. This is data-driven process. And I think that's what some people kind of get mixed up. Fire prevention is a derivative of the CRR process because we got to identify the problems, right? And we got to understand the data so then we can go solve that problem. And that's something I think people kind of misunderstand a little bit with CRR.
Absolutely. It's very good when we do stuff to prevent things from happening. And we can do that stuff just because it seems like the right thing to do. But when we're talking about real CRR and strategic CRR, we're talking about analyzing data so we can truly identify where our risks are at. Because if we're just doing it because we think it's right or we may not know. And even though subconsciously, a lot of times as fire departments, as municipalities, you know where your problem spots are, just because you respond there all the time. But to actually break down the data and look at the data, I think sometimes even in Peoria, as we've looked at some of that stuff, there's been some things that maybe we didn't realize right off the bat. And then we can start to address that problem with strategies directed towards that risk.
And I think something that scares some people with CRR is it's data, numbers. There's some people numbers scare. My former career as a meteorologist, I love numbers. So numbers, no big deal. But for some people, I think maybe that's a little bit of a roadblock. Can you kind of help them and explain, like, it's not that scary. This process, it's something that takes time and effort, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. So when you look at numbers and when you really break things down and you see where the efforts need to be directed towards, what that does is that's proof for what the efforts that you're doing. And when we show our communities and we show our citizens and we show our policymakers, hey, these are the numbers that we've been able to derive from our systems and from our record keeping systems and whatever that may be, then it shows them why they're maybe funding a certain project or they're funding a certain effort or they're doing something in a way of being proactive. And so, yes, can it be look overwhelming on the surface looking at the numbers? It can. But in today's world, and when we think about things like Nearest coming online and how that's going to provide fire incident data to us in a much higher level than what we're used to right now, I think you're seeing these things become easier and easier, and you're seeing departments be able to provide those numbers in a readable format to the lay person out there.
And that's going to help the fire chief go to that city council and say, look, the numbers don't lie. We are having X, Y, and Z issues. We need this to help solve those problems. And I think that's going to be beneficial to, not departments just your size, but we're also talking about volunteer departments who are working on very small shoestring budgets. Peoria, obviously, you guys, a little different situation with that, with being a bigger department, but kind of talk about the process. Why did you guys want to get into CRR? What was something you guys were like, man, CRR, there's just something about it?
Yeah. So I think in Peoria, traditionally, we have been that department that we just got used to responding to 911, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 911 was the fail-safe for everybody. And you had a problem, you picked up the phone, you dialed those 3 numbers, and the fire department was coming. And we've just always done that. But I think if we want to progress as a fire department, if we want to progress as a fire service as a whole, like, what are we doing proactively? What are we doing before that person has to call 911? Because in the world we're in today, there's so many things outside of, we talk about things like mental health, then we talk about things such as, working smoke alarm, and maybe somebody just doesn't know how to acquire a working smoke alarm, but then they see this fire department program that can put them in. When we talk about the mental health side, if you're calling 911 for a mental health crisis, maybe that's not the best resource for what you need in that moment, or even long term. Like, how do we prevent you from having this mental crisis 6 months down the road again, where you feel like the only thing you can do is call 911 again? And I think we got in Peoria, like, that's how we always operated. We just waited for the 911 call. And when we were fortunate enough to have the Vision 2020 project come on site and do 4 days of training with our personnel, specifically our operations personnel too, who are on the streets every day and answering these 911 calls every day, like, that's where the mindset in Peoria really kind of started to change.
And that saves resources. It saves time. You're not responding to every call if they understand that, hey, there's resources available that I don't have to call this. I can go get the help somewhere else. And then that frees up the ability to go help, in an emergency that could be life-threatening type thing. Not mental health. It is life-threatening, but I'm saying, like, now, like this, there's a car crash, but you've got 8 people over here, and now you only have 1 person to respond to that.
Absolutely. So I when we talk, and I talk with our operations personnel, nobody takes this profession thinking that they're not going to fight fire, right? They're going to fight fire. That's always going to happen. But I think when we talk about, there's other ways we've, and I jokingly say, right, we're all Kurt Russell coming out of the flames, right, with our coat open, and the vision is 100% clear,
You're
right?
Superman outfit on.
Yeah. And that there's definitely a time and a place for that. But I tell our men and women who, they have a passion for firefighting, which we all do in this profession, that, maybe instead of having to go to that house and pull that person out, maybe they have a working smoke alarm, and now their house may be still catching on fire, but they're getting out, and now you're just going and putting out the fire.
And then that reduces the risk of that firefighter or firefighters having to enter the home, put their life at risk to help pull them out. So, we talk about that as well. Homes burn faster, hotter than ever before. In the past, you'd have 20 minutes to get out of a burning house. Now you make 2 to 3 minutes max. And so that's something, though, just a program such as that. You see the stats, everybody needs to work smoke alarm. Oh, we know that. But how can we get that message to those folks to make them understand that?
Absolutely. Connecting with your community, and that's really another aspect of this community risk reduction, right? Is we don't want, as a fire department, we don't want the only time we connect with our citizens to be in their worst moment. And if we are a department that just sits and waits for them to call 911, the only time we're going to interact with them is in their worst moments. And it's great that we can mitigate, and we have the skills and we have the talented people to be able to mitigate those situations. But what if you go out there and act on a positive and do something positive and talk to them about fire safety or home safety or having working smoke alarms or fall prevention, especially in our elderly. If maybe there's something in their house, so they've got cords running across the floor, something that, maybe we can prevent that and show a positive light of the fire department that, hey, we're out here doing more than just answering your 911 calls. We're out here trying to help you to where you don't even need to call 911 for services.
And community risk reduction. There's the key word, community risk reduction. This is a collaborative effort, sometimes not only with the fire department, with other departments within the city itself or village, municipality, township, wherever you are. What are something you guys have learned from community risk reduction in Peoria that maybe you want to pass on? Somebody's watching this saying, it sounds great. I don't have resources. I don't know where to start. What are some things you could pass on to those folks?
So the word community is really key, JC. There's no doubt about it, because in Peoria, Illinois, when we started to partner with outside agencies outside of our four walls was really where things kind of really started to happen. I can tell you one story of the Peoria Housing Authority partnering with us to put smart burners in all of their stoves.
Nice.
In 180 units, right? That would have never been possible from only a fire department initiative. And so partnering with people that are out there, we have a great partnership with the American Red Cross, installing smoke alarms with them. There's the school district. We have a great partnership with them, utilizing these people, because these people also want to see a safe and healthy community, right?
Yeah.
So how do we make that all happen together? And I would say to even the smaller volunteer departments who maybe internally don't think they always have the resources, go find other people. Go find other people to help you, because there's other people that want good stuff to happen in your community.
And those folks could even reach out to a person like you and say, hey, I don't know where to start. You guys obviously bigger area, but it's the same concept no matter the size of the community. It's the same model that is used. It's just that how do you take that model for your community and shape it for you, right?
Absolutely. A couple months ago, I presented to a rural firefighters association outside of Peoria, and it was full of nothing but volunteers, and in a very very rural area, and we talked about what does it look like for them? What does CRR look like for them? And I told them, start small, start one step at a time, just do one thing, just have one initiative. How do I, maybe I take a Saturday morning and I spend an hour knocking on some doors with some smoke alarms and say, hey, do you have working smoke alarms? Maybe I take, a Wednesday evening and look at the dangerous buildings I have in my community and do some pre-planning, because that's another part of CRR, right? Like that's cutting down the risk of you not knowing what building you're going into if you ever do have to respond to that building. So there's another avenue of CRR.
And that's what we kind of talk about at the OSFM with our school inspection program. We really want the locals to get involved in this program, because then you establish that relationship with the school administration, who, if there is an emergency, have to call you as the fire department. Then you already have working knowledge of what the layout of the building looks like, who you're going to deal with in the situation, what the makeup of the school looks like. So people don't think of some of that stuff as a pre-planning type situation, but man, that is huge if you can have that relationship with your school or whoever you're dealing with. And it could be a senior citizen home. We're seeing a lot of those assisted living facilities coming up. I'm sure you guys are seeing an abundance of that in Peoria. Those are big areas too. Where the frequent flyers, I hate to say it that way, but those are your frequent flyers.
Absolutely. Those people that are utilizing 911 as their fail-safe, like that, they're calling 911 because they feel that's their only option. And when you can go out and give that that demographic of people, when you can provide them with other resources besides 911, I mean that's. We go to our nursing homes and our retirement facilities. We try and go to those on a very regular basis and present to those individuals and talk about evacuation plans and what to do when the fire alarm goes off, and then talk about things to be safe in their own home. And that could be fire safe. That could be physically safe. Whatever that looks like. And so we try and give those people those tips. To help them out in a proactive manner.
And I think a lot of the rural areas, they have the senior centers where people can come, they have meals, great opportunity maybe for some of those rural departments to connect with their seniors in their community. And it may not just be their community, it may be areas around, because that's kind of a central hub that, it doesn't matter if it is your fire chief or your, prevention person. They're going to get that same message. So working and collaborating together is huge.
Absolutely. I think the CRR efforts that we see really across the state are just such a positive motion for the fire service altogether. Whether you're in a town of 200 people or whether you're in a town of 2 million people, doing community risk reduction is going to do nothing but benefit not only your citizens, which it will, but it is going to benefit your department as a whole. And I think really that's what, when I think of Peoria and I think of our men and women that are out there on the streets, like that's what they've kind of come to embrace, is the fact that realizing that the proactive approach to saving lives really can work.
It's changing a culture. It's changing a mindset with that, and that's what we want to hear with those types of things. It's hard to change a culture. They say you teach an old dog new tricks. It's challenging, right? But it is possible to do this stuff. And what does the future of CRR hold in Peoria? I know you guys have worked with Vision 2020. You've done all of that stuff, but looking forward now, going forward, what's the next steps?
So I think what it is really just a continuous effort, JC. We've made strides, no doubt, in Peoria. We've done some really amazing projects, and then it's just thinking, okay, where can we take it from here? We definitely have goals. We've started a new curriculum in our school district. It's a more robust curriculum called Sound Off. That it's more than just one visit to the classroom. It's 3 separate visits to the classroom. So it's really a retention thing for these kids and learning these kids. And we're starting with 1 grade level right now. We hope to incorporate it into another grade level in the next school year after we finish this school year. Our smoke alarm program is getting very robust. We're starting to really hit many neighborhoods. We participated in the smoke alarm blitz last October and had a tremendous amount of success with that. And that's something I think that we want to look at doing internally as a department, maybe more than just the once a year around Fire Prevention Month.
And that's kind of what we were hoping with that blitz as a task force is, it doesn't have to always be Fire Prevention Month. It could be, that first time they flip the switch on the furnace. It could turn into a CO blitz. It could turn into so many other things. And that's what we like to hear, that because now you guys are going to do that on a continuous basis. And the fire doesn't have to happen in that neighborhood. You want to prevent that fire from happening or be able to get those people out quickly.
Absolutely. And it gives us a chance, kind of like I talked about earlier, like it gives us a chance to interact with those citizens in a much more positive aspect than in the worst moment of their lives, right? Yeah. So,
and that's huge. And we hope that people who are watching this or just simply listening to this just pings that CRR in their head and says, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it. But if you do have questions, reach out to us at the OSFM, reach out to folks like Nate. They're here to help you, because this really is not just a Peoria thing. It's not just a Joliet thing. It's a world thing. It's not, we want this to be successful. There are great poster children in states like North Carolina, Michigan, South Carolina that are doing things like this. And Illinois is a leader in CRR because we've seen that, and we know, and we're such a diverse state, from, bigger cities, metropolitan areas to very rural areas, and it can work for you. And that's what I wanted to really focus with you today, is that, to let people know it does work and it can work for you.
For sure. Yeah. Any effort you can put towards community risk reduction is going to be a benefit for your community, for your department. It's moving things in a positive direction. I just read a book, and it's titled, and I have no connection with this author, but Dan Heath is the name of the author, and he wrote a book called Upstream. And it's a great book about being proactive just overall. But I think in our fire service is changing so much, so rapidly anymore, that these proactive approaches, I think, are really where the fire service is going, and where, if we can help people before their time of need, like that's where we'll see success in the fire service.
Absolutely. And if you don't have to respond, because there's a lot of departments out there that are strapped, that are deciding, do I pay to leave the lights on, or do I put fuel in my truck? And the cost of everything is getting greater. So if you can use CRR, you can take that to your trustees, you can take to that board and say, look, I can save us if we do this proactive approach versus being reactive all the time and having to always respond.
Yeah.
You know, you're always going to have to respond, but if you can prevent that from happening, that just saves a lot of money. So,
Absolutely.
well, Nate, we appreciate it. Anything else you want to let people know about CRR out there?
No, I just would take. Don't be scared of it. Don't be fearful of it. Take it one step at a time. You don't have to dive in, but maybe just do one thing this year and maybe do another effort next year and just keep building on it.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to seeing CR become even more robust across Illinois and the country over the next coming years.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it, Chief.
JC.
Yep. Take care.
All right.
We'll see you guys soon.